Hello, and welcome to the Reducer Soccer Podcast. I'm really happy to welcome my first guest, Ian Edwards, comedian, writer, performer.
Yeah, and I'm laughing because your producer went outside.
Yes.
Slammed the night's door and said, "I'm gonna count down from 10."
It's kind of like working for Rick Rubin.
Yeah, I thought it was gonna be an intercom, but I didn't know I was gonna have to hear his voice coming through the door.
Hey, you
10,
expect
9,
the door to blast
8, yeah.
off after that.
Yeah, exactly.
Ian, we wanted to have you on. You're a big soccer fan. You got your own podcast called Soccer Comic Rant.
Yeah.
Right. You can find that on SoundCloud. You can find that on Twitter.
Right.
At Ian Edwards Comic.
Mm-hmm.
But you're a big soccer fan. You're a Man U fan.
Oh, yeah.
And we want to talk about the Premier League and European soccer today.
Mm-hmm.
I've been thinking about Mourinho. He's been on the mind. He's been on my mind for about 10 years.
That worries me that you've been thinking about a Portuguese man. But.
So here's my thing. He's definitely been the most popular manager of my adult life, right? For the last 10 years when he popped up on the scene in Porto, and it just seems like it never ends. There's always a Mourinho story that's brewing, whether he's mad, whether he's happy, whether he's re-signing his deal, whether he's pissed off at Roman or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of thinking about this the other day because he seems pretty happy after winning the Capital One Cup.
Too happy.
Yeah, a little too happy. If we didn't have Jose Mourinho, would we have to invent him, right? Would there be a manager who was that enigmatic, or do you think this is sort of a one-of-a-kind kind of thing?
I think he's a one-of-a-kind guy because I can't think of anyone like him, and he adds to it, but I think the sport could survive without him. But he's cool to have, but I think besides all the antics, he's a really good coach.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking about, even this morning I was looking at some highlights, and I was looking at Chelsea, and I was looking at Man City, and the difference between Mourinho as a coach and say Pellegrini or other coaches is that Man City has one style. The coach just coaches in one style, and the players are robotic to that style. Mm-hmm. And it's a good style, and it works when it works. But sometimes to beat different teams, you have to change up your style. And Mourinho is flexible like that. And not only is he flexible like that, but he can make his players as flexible as his tactics are.
Yeah,
and that's what makes him a good coach. And he acts up. And it's good to have someone who's not afraid to act up. You know?
Yeah. I mean, it's we had it with Ferguson for a while. I guess I was kind of thinking, when you look at other, especially American sports leagues, and you see how much personality a lot of the athletes have, whether it's somebody pretty white bread like Peyton Manning, or somebody who's very interesting like Russell Westbrook or something like that. Mm-hmm. You feel like you have a lot of access to those guys and you know them, but then with soccer players, I think because they're still relatively hidden from the media. You don't have a lot of really cool interviews with soccer players. Even in the Guardian, when you get to the bottom of an interview with somebody, it's so and so is here courtesy of Gillette. You know what I mean? It's they're very limited in the mix zone stuff that they do after the game.
So Mourinho's the Russell Westbrook of coaches,
or he's the voice of the game. You know what I mean? He's the most interesting person who's allowed to be his full self. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean he's earned it.
For sure.
He had to win some stuff, and I like him. The thing that worries me about him is, and I just mentioned it too, is he celebrated too much from a Capital One Cup win.
Yeah.
And that lets me know he knows how much in danger his immortality is.
Yeah.
And how much, and I told a friend, he had to win that cup, right? Mm-hmm. And my Chelsea animal idiot friends are celebrating. Yeah, we won. Francisco's texting me. I'm listen, that's a desperation win. You had to win that. But if you didn't, if that's the only trophy you won all year, you wouldn't be excited.
You would laugh at Arsenal fans for celebrating that.
Yeah, exactly. You'd laugh at them. So don't tell me this is a big win.
Yeah.
No, that's how desperate you are. But if he has to win the league too to win this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You brought up Pellegrini, and you brought up the way that Pellegrini has this the way he plays, and Mourinho has the way Mourinho is the tinkerer, and he can tactically change a game. You know?
Yeah, he can make that Chelsea team play like a second division team playing against a top Premiership team if they just need to have a 0-0 win.
Yeah, right.
And
if they
and make a top forward in the world play like a defender
and something
for 90 minutes.
And that's what he does. He does stuff that's so obvious, like Matic is out. So you're going to make Zuma, who's probably not like as tactically aware as Matic, play in the defensive midfield.
Right.
So now basically you're going to play with like 5 defenders. And of course, you're just going to win. Like
You're
you
going
know
to win. Like, he knows they're not going to score on him.
Yeah, it's not like
that's the important
they
thing.
don't get cute. He's not like, I'm going to play with 3 defenders.
Right.
I'm going to play with like my, it's not wing backs. It's like, no, just going to choke you out.
Like, he's satisfied with 1 forward. When he's at Real Madrid, he's probably upset that he had those 3 forwards that he had to pay.
Yeah, it's a
so
headache.
they had to play him. It's a headache.
Yeah.
Like Chelsea's good now. Here's the danger of Chelsea. They only got 1 forward. There's 10 games left. And my podcast partner Martin is like, Chelsea's going to run away with this, but there's 10 games left. Like, you are one Diego Costa injury away from losing the title.
So, but who's going to catch him then? Because City doesn't look like they're about it.
But City, you got 10 games left, and Diego Costa is not there to score. Like, to tell you, to be honest, the person they should worry about losing the most is their leading scorer over the last few games, Ivanovic. If they lose Ivanovic, he scored more than Costa in the last few.
And every goal he scores seems to be the most important
goal.
It's like, how did this dude just come flying out?
They're not bullshit. They're
out
real
of like
goals.
6 yards away, smashes it in, and it's just like, oh, they won again.
That dude amazes me. He doesn't even look like he should be able to do what he does.
No, he looks like he should be delivering like Xerox paper.
Yeah, he looks like a clunky piece of metal with arms and legs sticking out. But he's way more athletic than he looks, and he's way more skilled than his looks. He's very deceptive looking.
We're talking about managers, and we're talking about Mourinho and Pellegrini. So I wanted to talk a little bit about Liverpool, and a good way to get in there is maybe talking about Rodgers. Brendan Rodgers recently admitted that he thought his job was in jeopardy over like in the bad parts of the season. Liverpool, even though they got dumped out of the Europa League, they've been looking really good recently, and they've been looking really good playing through Coutinho, Henderson, and Sterling. Like, this is like the new Liverpool is here.
Oh yeah, you got a beautiful new Liverpool. Yeah, Jesus,
and
I'm jealous.
Like this is pretty exciting stuff if you're a Liverpool fan like I am. What have you thought about? Like, Rodgers seems to be, to me, the guy who is like almost most self-aware about being a manager. Like, he's always commenting on it. He's never short to like he'll never not mention like some tactical tweak he's made or like something he's done or something he didn't do that he regrets. What do you think about him? Like, he gets knocked for being like the Ricky Gervais of soccer management sometimes, but
yeah, he's like kind of Simon Cowell-ish.
Yeah,
like I remember watching. They had their version of, what was that NFL show?
Yeah, the 24/7. It was,
and they had the Liverpool version. And
I can't remember
cursing out Sterling. Yeah, I can't remember the, and he's got that typical rough coaching thing where he curse out the young players or maybe the older players. But as a coach, the things I haven't listened to a lot of his interviews. I'm just aware of what he's done on the field.
Yeah,
and I'm aware of the fact of, and it may be because he was forced to, but he brought through and took a chance with a lot of young players.
Yeah.
And it's paid off. And I know that's not always easy in this sport, and especially when you're at Liverpool, when you need to win. So I admire his balls or desperation / balls for bringing through, like a Sterling and going to get Coutinho, who I saw at Inter Milan a long time ago, and I thought he was good. Yeah. And I thought Inter Milan, but Coutinho's too young to play for Inter Milan.
They sold him for like $8 million though. He didn't cost that much.
He didn't cost that much. Yeah. Because he's too young to play. Inter Milan likes 40-year-olds.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're not knocking on 40's door, you can't play for Inter Milan. You haven't been playing
for Argentina for 100 caps for Argentina. Don't even knock.
After you get 100 caps for Argentina, then you can play for Inter Milan.
Yeah.
They like old players for some reason.
Yeah, it's funny too because like a lot of the guys that Liverpool has kind of happened upon, like Sterling was brought in because of like an injury crisis, and they started playing him younger than they probably would have liked to have brought him on. And like Rodgers has been really self-aware, really aware about.
And
like
Chelsea had him, right?
I can't remember where he was before he got to Liverpool. I thought he was like he might have been somewhere else, like a Reading or a Wigan or something like that, But in any case, like they didn't plan on bringing him on that early, and it's just that like they lost like 4 guys, and the same thing goes for Henderson, who I think was sort of like one of those weird Dalglish buys where he was just like, I'm just gonna buy every good English player for like 50 million.
It's hilarious.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting to watch them play. They definitely are like the slickest football team.
Yeah, you got Henderson, Coutinho, Sterling, Sturridge, and you got Ibe. Have you seen Ibe play? Yeah. And like when I just saw him, I said, it's too early to say, but I'm just going to put online and say, this is the real deal.
Yeah.
I've seen him accelerate in a way, I've watched the sports for years.
Yeah.
Like, he has a special acceleration, and that's going to be dangerous. And that's 5 young players.
And then they moved Emre Can back to defense, which seems to have turned the season around. Like he's
Right.
like he's the sort of like weird secret story there, where they took him out of defensive midfield and made him one of the 3 central defenders, and
Yeah.
he's just like settled the whole thing.
Right, and those little moves like that make a big difference.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that leads us to another conversation that I kind of wanted to have, which was about defending.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of managers put a lot of time into defending. Defending well, just like in any other sport, is probably the key to like Premier League survival. But it's it's like if you can defend well,
Right.
you can probably stay in and around this league.
Right.
But we don't often hear about like a lot of defenders. I mean, you're a Man U fan, so you probably like grew up with like not only like Bruce and Neville and all those iconic players, but like Rio and Vidic. And you grow up and you like study the Italian central defenders and just all these like iconic guys. And it just does seem like right now, with a couple of exceptions, defense matters. But defending, we're kind of having like a star drought when it comes to defenders. Have you noticed that?
I don't know if it's a drought. Like, there's still named defenders. Even if I go out, like is it Ashley Cole was a star defender.
Yeah.
And he's not there anymore. And Evra, he just left.
But I'm saying like that generation of guys seems to almost like have been they're kind of hitting the tail end. Like Evra's in Juventus.
Well, one thing I know, Man U doesn't have any star defenders.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I'm trying to think of teams that do. Trying to think of teams like Zuma, definitely.
Yeah, he's gonna be big.
And you guys have the relics of a star defense. I mean, Chelsea does.
Yeah.
With Terry and Cahill. But just Premiership you're talking about?
Well, just even like I know that there's like great defenders in Italy because everybody like basically walks in Italy, so it's not as hard to defend.
Yeah, they do walk.
They just play tactical football, which means standing around.
It's like chess football.
Yeah.
It's like there's a timer, you have 60 seconds to pass the ball.
Yeah, you can like have an espresso.
And then they'll tackle you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's why people like to go there. Like it's like MLS is one thing, but I think people like to go to Italy towards the end of their career because it's like, nobody's going to slide tackle me.
Lay back,
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, like there's Varane, there's a lot of guys. I know that some of the PSG kids are really good. Some of those Brazilian guys that they paid 80 million each for. But
nice.
Yeah, it just seems like it's interesting. Like you don't have like those iconic defenders right now.
I guess you're right because I can't think of any. I know that one thing that's happening is people are starved for central defenders. So there's a lot of good right backs that they shift into central defense, and I think they would be better as right backs or left backs and be stars that way. Because usually those are the stars. Like if in the old school days it was the central guy who was a star.
The Tony Adams or whatever, Steve Bruce.
Those guys. And then like 80s, 90s, it was like the Brazilian style, fullback who could just fly up the field.
Yeah.
And then
Royal Carlos style guys. Yeah.
And then now, I can't.
So
maybe I'm missing some. Maybe there are some, but
I'm sure like people would hit us up like immediately, like, how could you not mention so and so? And I'm just like, I'm not saying that there's not good defenders, but it seems like mom and let your baby grow up to be central defenders seems to be like a thing now. It's like there's just more lucrative, and it's funny because like if you're a good central defender, you could like have a very long career.
Yeah. It's funny. I was looking at Diego Costa, right, and I just recently realized how tall he is. Like he's taller than most central defenders, and he also roughs them up.
Yeah.
And he probably would have been a good central defender.
Yeah. Drogba probably would have been.
Drogba should probably try that now as a position.
We go to Italy. Go play central defense.
Play central defense. Don't go to Qatar or some country.
Yeah.
Or come to the MLS. Stay in Europe and play defense, central defender.
So you're a Man U fan. Mm-hmm. I feel like we should talk about United. How are you feeling about the Van Gaal experiment this many months in? It seems like it's been up and down.
It's better than the Moyes experiment.
Okay.
Let's just say that.
Yeah.
And I'm a realist. I know the team that Sir Alex won with the year before Moyes was. I never even, on paper, I was like, this is crap.
Right.
And
lucky to get top 4. Yeah. And won the title.
And they won the title, and that's how good Sir Alex was. And Van Gaal is scrambling around, and people are criticizing, but it's like, what are you going to do? He's just trying to stay in a Champions League spot. I can't watch the games because even the wins are so ugly. They feel like losses.
Yeah.
but it's just is what it is right now. It's like, you know, like, and and when you're desperate, you spend money in the wrong places, and you spend too much of it on the wrong people because you're trying to fix something. It's almost like the recession, where you get money from the banks and you borrow money,
stimulate the economy,
and you throw it into a hole. We're just trying to stimulate the economy. So this is his first Barack Obama years. He's trying to stimulate the economy,
He's trying to
save the
Detroit.
auto industry. He's trying to save Detroit, and it's the first year, man. I'll give it some time, but it's rough.
All right, so then what's the first? What do you of the players that he has now? Who do you want to see stay? Who do you want to see go? Like, are you a Van Persie fan? He'll be great in flashes.
Van Persie might be done.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering whether or not, like, even though they have the Dutch connection, whether or not, like,
but Van Persie might be done, but because of the Dutch connection, Van Gaal might not want to admit that. So that might be a problem. And we just don't. This is what we have. If I had some lemons and some water and sugar, right, I could make lemonade. But if I made that lemonade and put like half a bag of sugar in that lemonade, it would taste like crap.
Yeah.
And that's what we got.
Yeah.
Like, we have the wrong amount of shit we don't need.
Yeah.
On that field. Like, Mata's a good player, but he might not belong there. Fellaini, he can't be that good for Everton and not really be that good.
Look at Di Maria was one of the four best players in the world, like, 12 months ago.
But but Di Maria always irked me.
Did he?
When he played for Madrid.
Why?
He doesn't pass.
Oh, well, I mean,
he doesn't pass, and he falls a lot and tries to get fouled.
So you must not like watching Madrid then.
Well, Madrid doesn't play like that. Like, you know, they're like gazelles. They run all over you.
Yeah.
Right? It's like you open a gate and a stampede of like graceful ballerina like animals with speed just come at you. But like, there's just things I don't like about Di Maria, and I just think Di Maria, Mata, Fellaini, Herrera. It's just the whole combination of what's on that field doesn't fit.
Do you think the problem with buying like that, because they're being linked with like Marco Reus and like all these guys that are just like more like just superstar athletes, footballers. But do you think that when you buy like that, you're automatically not going to get value because these are dudes for the most part who had teams largely built around them, and then you're bringing them in, you're asking them to be somebody's got to play Capital One Cup games or come off the bench in the 75th minute, if that, or just not get the amount of games that they wanted. I mean, Mata, he hasn't really been the same since maybe his first or second year at Chelsea.
Right.
But when you ask like Herrera, like Bilbao, it kind of like ran through him, didn't it? You know what I mean? Like same thing with Di Maria.
Now you're just asking him to be a guy.
Yeah, or just like. Yeah, I kind of wonder whether, like, if you want to make this work, like, you almost, and I'm not trolling, like, you almost get rid of Rooney. Because, like, Rooney, it casts such, like, a shadow over that team in terms of running the ball through him.
I'm not opposed to that. Like, I realize this is probably one of those situations where somebody who you, like, no, you can't get rid of that guy has to go, and you think it's the worst move possible.
Yeah.
And then it becomes the best move possible. Like, I've seen that in sports where you're like, you can't get rid of that guy. This team's going to go down.
Right.
And it works perfect. Like, this team has so much of stuff they don't need. You probably would have to get rid of somebody or a few people who the fans will oppose to make this work.
I mean, I almost wonder if they're running into the same problem City did a couple years back, where, like, they signed all these dudes and then they couldn't get rid of them because their wages were so high that nobody else could buy them. You know what I mean? Nobody else can take a guy off your hands like that. Like, can anybody afford Nasri who would actually want him at this point? You know,
that was such a bad buy.
Yeah,
they've made like City. They spent a lot of money, but they made like 3 bad buys.
Yeah,
Nasri is one of them. Dzeko is kind of a bad buy.
I think I'd rather have
50-50, 2.5 bad buys.
But do you think Dzeko on Arsenal is a 20-goal-a-year guy? Like, Dzeko is the number one starting striker on a team that, like, a Tottenham or whatever. Like, I mean, not with Kane now, but like, if you start Dzeko on like most Premier League teams, I think he does a good job.
Yeah, you know what Dzeko needs? Like, a coach who believes in him.
Yeah.
I don't think he's bad, so that's why I said half. I think you need a coach that's going to, like, just play till you score. And I think once he gets comfortable, then he'll score. But how old is he now that you can't even afford
Yeah,
to
he
do
probably
that.
should have left City like 2 years
You know
ago.
what I mean?
If he wanted to like really be about it. Like
Right.
he should have gone to like Juventus or something like that.
Right. Like the coaches that were hired had a lot of expectations on him, and they just didn't have the time to let him settle.
Yeah.
Like I believe that's the only problem with Dzeko. Like, just give him the time to settle. But listen, these oil billionaire guys expect me to win now, so I gotta keep changing you in and out until I get somebody I can count on.
Right. And it's interesting that you mentioned that. I mean, we just got out of this MLS collective bargaining issue, and I was thinking about like the way that it's unlikely, like in the next like 10, 15, 20 years, I don't even know, like that the top four in England, for instance, is really going to significantly change that much. You know what I mean?
Not.
Like it's going to be like 5 or 6 teams jockeying for 4 places.
But at least we have a 5 or 6 top 4. There's countries that's got 2.
1.
Italy's got 1.
Yeah, Germany's got 1.
And Germany's
now.
got 1. Like Germany ruined. But Bayern Munich has ruined that league.
Yeah. But what you have is like when you see a city who has like a Jovetic, who I mean never really was like Pele, but like was really good on Fiorentina. Hurt his knee. Like it was they bought him for.
Is
a lot
he
of money.
forward or midfield? I can't.
He's like a 10. He's like in between.
10.
Yeah.
Right.
Which they have a lot of 10s. Yeah. But when you hoard that amount of talent, like that, not only is it you're making yourself good, but you're also making your competition worse. And it's one thing if you're like when City came through, I thought they very specifically were buying like Arsenal players to weaken Arsenal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then
their whole team, a lot of their players are Arsenal.
Yeah, but then you see like what would a Dzeko mean for like a Southampton or a Stoke or a Swansea, like one of those teams that are just like right on the outside looking in.
For Southampton, what would they mean?
Like if you could redistribute some of the like not the wealth but the talent, you know what I mean? Like, and I just think that sometimes that's one of those things that really bothers me, where it's like I wish I could see like just a slightly more, not even parity. Like I think Southampton or Tottenham deserve to win the league or not, but as much as like it would be cool to like get like those talented players on other teams.
Yeah, but you know how I look at it? I look at it like, fine, but you know what those teams would do if they had a Dzeko and he had a great season? They'd sell him for money.
I know.
So a lot of them deserve the position that they're in.
You're right.
It's like,
you're right.
Why won't you keep the guy that's like that could get you to Europe, to the Europa League or the Champions League? Why would you sell him after a season and a half? Like, oh yeah, keep playing. Oh, see that money going up. Yeah, he's gonna cost more. He's gonna cost more. Oh yeah, he's perfect selling amount now. Yeah, let's sell him. It's like so those teams like I almost feel bad, and then I remember what they would do.
Yeah,
like they have no commitment to ever really win the Premiership. And now that they, like on the show we just talking about how much the Premiership, like the Premiership money is so big now from the New Deal that a Premiership team, even at the bottom of the table, will make 35% more money than the Champions League, the team that wins the Champions League. So it's like people are just in this. This is a business.
Yeah. Especially for the owners who look at it as like an investment. I mean, it's not. It's still pretty. If you go out looking at like teams like QPR, looking at teams like whatever happened to Bolton, it's hard to imagine some of those teams getting back up, especially because they're in dire straits. But it is interesting to think about, like what would you do if you were at like right in the middle there? Like what would you do if you were Stoke? If you're in Everton, you're just trying to stay in the league.
Everton was in the middle for a long time. Like they do, Moyes had the best job in football. And he just tried to elevate it and it didn't work. Like that Everton job, like he was a hero and he didn't have to win anything. He just had to look like they could win something. Yeah. And there's jobs like that.
Yeah, I mean like Mark Hughes could stay at Stoke for the next 15 years probably.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like as long as he's okay.
Yeah.
Finishing 7th, maybe making
and they beat their rivals, win their derbies.
Like maybe win an FA Cup or a Capital One Cup somewhere in there.
Or get to a final.
But it's so nuts because like as soon as those guys get involved in these cup competitions, especially like the Europa League, which I think is probably like the most mismanaged thing in like European football right now, because
why?
It would be
I'm probably going to agree with you.
Because I think it would be cool if there was a secondary cup competition for teams that were not in the Champions League. Like I think it would be really cool if like the Tottenhams and the Evertons and the Stokes could play in or Newcastles or whoever could play in a European competition against other smaller European clubs, and I would watch it. But the fact that it seemingly goes on for 9.5 months, and that you basically have to sacrifice your domestic league play because you're playing Thursday nights, and then you gotta fly back from somewhere in fucking Romania to play on Sunday. It just seems like it's not worth it. Like the stats show that like most teams that play in the Europa League, like these long seasons, just wind up cratering in the domestic league.
Right.
I know. I like the glory hunting, man. I like the going for a cup stuff. That's that. If I was a fan of Stoke, I'd want them to try and win the Europa League. I would want them to like set out a junior team and go out. What do you think?
It's just so dangerous.
Yeah.
You can win the Europa League and then get relegated.
Yeah.
It's just
that could happen to Everton this year.
Yeah, and the money's in the Premiership.
Yeah.
You know?
It's really for fans. It's like fans get to go to a cup final.
Yeah. It's for fans who want to fight in a foreign city. You know what I'm saying? It's for fans who want to throw bottles.
Get excited, Everton fans.
Somewhere else in Europe.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, thanks for coming down for the first episode. So, are you going to be touring out anywhere soon? Can people find you anywhere in particular?
Just hit me on Twitter at Ian Edwards Comic, and then I'll have dates there.
Okay.
I have a website, but I should do better with it.
Okay.
And just hit me on the website, and then the podcast comes out like Sunday, Monday, the Soccer Comic Rant.
Okay, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
All right.